You're good.
So when I finally got sober, there were some things that were going to happen that I knew were going to happen. Like, for instance, the withdrawals. Of course, I was highly addicted to alcohol, and I was going to have all those horrible feelings that come with withdrawals, the sweats and the shakes and all that stuff. That I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was going to crave alcohol after I quit because it had been part of my life for so long. There was all these things. I knew that my health wasn't so good, and there were just all this stuff. But there was some stuff that I did not expect to happen when I got sober. That wasn't all that great. There's a lot of benefits for getting sober, and I experienced many, many benefits. But some of these things that happened, I did not expect at all. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And before I get into them a little bit deeper, let's good morning and or evening or afternoon or whatever to everybody out there. And let's say hi to Marcus real quick. And hello, Marcus. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, there were a couple things that I didn't notice were going to happen when I got sober. Because for me, when I started to try to get sober, those times where, I would be binging and drinking like crazy, and then I would stop for like 2 to 3 weeks, those times I actually felt really, really good. And I don't know why that wasn't enough to just keep me going sober, but I felt really good, and I thought my life was on track, and I thought everything was going good. And so I thought that sobriety was going to be that. I thought, okay, sobriety, I'm going to be a better businessman, I'm going to have more energy, I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to climb mountains in a single bound, or whatever they
Oh, yeah.
say. Put my cape on, and here I go. What I didn't realize is that sobriety was kind of different. Once I actually got rid of alcohol, and it was gone and off the table, and at that point, I pretty much like screwed up my life. I mean, my life was pretty messed up before, but and when I had to go to rehab, it was really messed up. Like they say, you don't go to rehab on a high note. Like you're not going there for improvement and betterment like people go to a self-help conference. No, this is like you're down and out, and there ain't no other options. You can't quit
Yeah.
drinking. Depression was high. A lot of things were high, and my energy level was very low after I got sober. For the first year, I was just really mellow, and I took everything very easy, and that was probably the second worst year in business since I started my business. And, I had to look at that and be like, wow, okay, yeah, we took a big income hit. I had a hard time with things, but I was okay because I knew that the alternative was not being around anymore. The alternative was being a complete drunk or being gone.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting.
That's the reality of it. Marcus just hit a bunch of the things. Our titles, four unexpected problems, and I can go over four of these problems. And actually, there's a bonus one that I know Marcus will want to talk about as well, a fifth one. But one of the just to get down to some of the specifics. Like one of the unexpected problems I had was when I first got sober, and we've talked about this before on our show, but sleep. I did not sleep well at all when I first got sober. That was big. I was like, well, why am I waking up? Well, when I was a drunk, I had to wake up to drink so I could go back to sleep or passing out, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't real sleep. But that was a big issue, and I'm sure that's been a big issue for any of you that have gotten sober and had to deal with that as well. Sleep takes a little while to get used to, but it did come around, and that's a big thing. And for you, did you sleep good after you got
No,
sober, or no?
no, I was pretty much up till 3 or 4 every night.
Yep.
I couldn't sleep. I was anxious, really rambunctious in my mind. Not so much outside. I mean, I'd go to the gym and stuff, but I wasn't like powerlifting or nothing. I was like, basically getting outside to do some exercise. And so I had to look at that and understand what was going on, and really kind of cope with it. Like I rolled with it. I'm like, okay, I guess I go to sleep at 3 now. Now, in hindsight, I wish someone had told me like stop drinking coffee at like 2 in the afternoon, because that will affect your sleep.
Yeah.
Especially because, what was pretty much putting you to sleep or passing you out was the alcohol. Now that's gone. So now you're just left with, like, if you're like me, I would toggle between coffee and alcohol from the time I got up till the time I went to bed. Because I was like, okay, too much alcohol, better have some coffee so I don't fall asleep. Hey, too much coffee, better have some more alcohol so I don't, like, go run a marathon. God forbid that, right? And so all these things started to add up, and I had to be like, okay, well, I literally just cut out like 6,000 calories of alcohol every day, and I literally just cut out my downer, which was making me mellow.
Yeah. That's it. When you get sober, all these nerve endings start firing off that have been kind of pushed down by the alcohol, and then we're just, for me at least, I was kind of wired. Somebody had mentioned how they had extreme fatigue, and it's kind of weird because I had that fatigue as well, yet my mind was completely wired, and that's what they kind of bounced off each other, and that made sleep really difficult. And I was finally, it finally mellowed out after I started to work sort of a sobriety program and get the alcohol out of my system, and just really time is what fixed that. But that was one of the big things. Another one, actually, Marcus was talking about his first year after he got sober, and how it was a very unproductive year. And for me, it was very similar as well. And that was one of the other unexpected problems that I had, was just this. I had this expectation, like Marcus had mentioned, I'm going to go do this and this and this and become successful. And I really didn't care about being famous, but being successful and rich, all this, life's going to be great, and da 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 da. And that didn't happen. And what a lot of what I had to do that first year, and I keep doing now, is I had to learn I had to figure out how to live life. Before, my answer for everything was alcohol, and then, it's all good, I'll just have a drink and everything will be fine, until my drinking made everything not fine. And that was, it was and is a complete learning experience on how to live life sober. And so many people do it on a daily basis. A normal person that's not an alcoholic, they know how to do it. They know how to live life. For some reason, the alcohol had hindered my ability to do that, and I did not learn how to live life. And that was a big wake-up call, completely unexpected, and I didn't realize that all of a sudden I had to figure this stuff out. Yeah. So that was a tough one.
Yeah, it is. And, it's interesting because some of us, get out of alcoholism with not too many scars. Some of us have big scars and legal problems and family problems and can't see your kids and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And you do have to learn to live again, right? And I think the biggest thing is you have to learn to live again without drinking, because that was my go-to for everything, right? It's like, hey, if I don't want to hang out with people, but I have to go somewhere, now I'm like, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm pretty much okay. I just figure out what I want to do. But back then I thought I had to do things, and, it's like, okay, well, I need to get hammered to be able to make it through this wedding or a funeral or whatever it is. And that's what life became. That's how life was lived. And I never really thought about what would life be like if I lived it on purpose the way that I want.
Yeah.
What if I was okay with things? What if every little thing that came my way wasn't a giant catastrophe? Because when I was drinking, I catastrophized everything. Like, guy cuts you off on the road, everybody hates me. And it's like, no, not everybody hates you. The guy cuts you off because he needs to go back to driving school. That's all there is to it. Or he needs alcohol more than you do, so he's going real fast. Who knows? But now I look at it and I'm like, well, that guy probably cut off about 1,000 people already. So he must, if anything, he hates everyone. It's not everyone hating me. Right, I'm just sitting here trying to drive on the road.
And maybe he's just clueless and doesn't even know that he's doing it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe he's looking at the kilometers or something. I don't know. But we have to look at it. We have to understand life doesn't revolve around us. Alcohol makes us very self-centered because we only care about alcohol, because at the end of the day, we only care about how we feel. We don't care how anyone else feels. We are completely living a life of self-absorption. And I remember watching this with my grandma, she was drunk most of her life, from the time she was probably 16 to, I don't know, she had a head injury because of alcoholism at, I think, 60, about 60, something like that. And that's what got her sober. She literally didn't get sober until half of her head was missing because she fell. And she even then, she was like, that's the city's fault. They shouldn't put a curb there. And it's like, everyone else was fine with the curb. You know, you can't even get out of your car and you slip and fall. And she was a severe alcoholic, and I remember she lived in a dream world where everything was about her. She started to believe things that weren't real, and so did I. And, you know, it's a difficult thing because we don't realize the effects of long-term alcohol use on our mindset, right? Because we go through and we're like, yeah, when we're drunk, and blah, 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 and we get better. And one of the unknown things that you learn when you get sober is how jacked up alcoholism made your thoughts over time and time of repetitive warped thinking. And it's not something that happens overnight. Like your first bender, you're not like that. But over time, your brain starts to change and you start to rewire it. And that's why anxiety's through the roof. Anxiety is thinking all about me. I'm sitting here anxious because I think everyone else here gives a rip about me. And they really don't. Really, they're probably too anxious to think about what I'm doing anyway. And so when we learn that this is what happened, even though you might think everything's okay, strap in, because you are in for a wild ride learning how tweaked your brain was with prolonged alcohol use.
Yeah, you touched on the self-centeredness, and that was me to a T. I wanted to be comfortable, and so everything, you know, I've said many times that everything revolved around alcohol, and really it revolved around me trying to make myself feel better, and that's why, and alcohol being the answer was why everything revolved around alcohol. That was just a completely self-centered way of thinking, and it was just me. That was completely the way I was, absolutely. And it was a difficult thing to learn how to get out of, and that was part of figuring out how to live life. And you know, along with that is another one of our points, which is, you know, all of a sudden I get sober, and I realize that I have to take responsibility for my own life. I have to take responsibility for my sobriety. Nobody's going to help me stay sober. I mean, they're going to support me, and I can get professional help, and I did get professional help. And I would definitely suggest, if any of you are still struggling, you get professional help. But ultimately, it's my responsibility to stay sober. It's my responsibility to to do the right thing and not try to hide stuff from other people. When I start to try to hide stuff, I'm going to start to try to hide that drink, and then I'm going to be back to where I was before. And so taking that responsibility for my sobriety, it also goes into taking responsibility for my life. And as far as what I've done in life in the past, yes, alcohol was there. I made bad decisions because of alcohol, but I'm the one that made the bad decisions. So it's my responsibility to fix those bad decisions, or at least to move forward in a better direction, in a direction that's going to maybe help other people, and not try to be stuck in this self-centered way of thinking. And that right there is one of the keys for my sobriety, is trying to not be so self-centered and trying to reach out a little bit more and just be a better person. Then I don't have to hide. I don't have to go back to that drink because of guilt or whatever the reason. That helps me a lot every day.
Absolutely. Jensen says, I'm going to read up on neuroplasticity connected to alcoholism and adjustment to sober life. That is an interesting thing. I remember before I got sober, I was obsessed with different therapy models and different things that related to neuroplasticity, how the mind works, how the brain is wired, different things like that. And it's interesting because everything I read, and I read too much, I had a lot of time on my hands then, about neuroplasticity only talks about the good. And I think this is a flaw, because I think if we're going to have a well-rounded idea, right, we don't just talk about sober, oh, we're going to be good. We got to talk about the bad too, so that we understand what's going on. As Alan Watts always says, you know, you wouldn't know good if you didn't know bad. You wouldn't know happiness if you didn't know sadness, right? You'd just be plain. And with neuroplasticity, which is the idea that the brain can change itself and get better over time. They see this with like stroke patients and people with brain damage and trauma victims and all kinds of things like that, where the brain can actually start to fix itself, which is a good thing. But the bad side of that is that the reverse is also true. And a lot of people don't talk about this, and this is something that I studied a lot when I got sober. I would look at like books by Viktor Frankl, books by people who went through severe traumatic experiences, POWs that were in combat, right? And I would learn like, okay, what was it? Like you take this guy who's American flag waving, Patriot of the Year, multi-decorated combat veteran, king of the road, basically. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, they get him back and he's completely brainwashed into, you know, whatever belief system he was fighting against. And it's like, well, wait, how did that happen? How does that happen? Well, what happens is over time, that gets chipped away. And it can even happen fast. This is something that's interesting, right? They have shown studies that if you deprive people of sleep, if you deprive people of food, nutrients, if you constantly bombard them with stimulus and different things, their brain will change. It will change, and it can change fast. This is why there's actually a good book by, I forget the name, William James. And his book is The Varieties of Religious Experience. And back in the 1800s, they would have revivals, right? And you guys all know I used to be a street preacher, so this was interesting to me. And, you know, as a street preacher, it was like, okay, sometimes someone's like, yeah, I like the God thing. And other times someone wants to punch you in the face. We didn't have like 1800s revivals where people would lay flat on the ground for 48 hours and be weeping to God or whatever. But back then they did. And this William James guy was like, okay, why the hell does that happen? Well, sleep deprived, constant stimulus, and weakened mental state. Gee, that sounds a lot like alcoholism. I mean, it's almost to the T. And you have these people who, you look at cults, people are willing to do crazy things because they believe in something. And you look at it and you're like, you literally believe a spaceship's going to come get you? Like, that's what they're just going to come get you. Out of all outer space, they're going to come to Arizona in the middle of nowhere and get some clown who thinks he knows something. Like, that's what the whole universe is brought down to. The spaceship guy is coming to get 9 people who believe in the spaceship. All right, well, y'all want to buy some beachfront real estate? Right? You know, I got some stuff to say. And the way that happens, as silly as it is, the thing that I learned from neuroplasticity is I am subject to anything. Under the right circumstances, under the right mindset, I would be one of those spaceship believers. Beep, boop, boop. It's a combination. There's a combination in your mind, and it switches. Just like that. And that's what alcohol does too. That's why rehab is so good, because if you get the right rehab, they are getting you at that point. You're susceptible, right? And he was like, hey, I remember James came in, and he was our rehab guy. And I was like, nope, I am educated. I am smart. And truth be told, I didn't know my butt from my face when it came to that stuff. And he said, I'm going to brainwash you. And I'm like, no, you're not. You ain't going to brainwash. I know brainwashing. I read a book. And he's like, I don't really care what you read. And for that 30 days, he did brainwash me. And what he brainwashed me to think is that alcohol was the problem, and I needed to stay away from alcohol. And it worked.
And you know, your clean cut look there, you got brainwashed by a hippie.
Which is funny because I've always been that kind of, I've always liked that philosophy, which is funny because, you know, I went into rehab and I'm thinking, okay, like some of the teachers at the rehab were like burnouts, and I'm like, this is not going to work for me. I can't. And so this hippie guy walks in and he's singing and laughing, and AA poster child. He loves AA, and I did not. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to like loosen up a bit because this guy has what I want. He has sobriety, and he's happy. And later I find out, after I get to talking and I accept, like, okay, this guy's got something that I need to learn. He's like, yeah, I basically taught college in 4 different languages on like 5 different continents. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, yeah, I have like PhDs. And then he was talking about things that he had learned because I started listening to Werner Erhard, and I was obsessed with him when I went to rehab. And this guy's like, yeah, he used to go to this place that we used to hang out. I know him, or knew him before he fled the country, some scandal thing. But he knew him, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And then I started to learn about that type of philosophy, and it really helped me.
Yes, indeed. So back to some of the unexpected problems. I had one more that's in the 4, and that was that, for me at least, I felt like I lost all my friends. I mean, how many of you on here have gotten sober and then you feel like you've lost your friends? Or if you want to hang out with your friends, I mean, I didn't lose my friends, but it was like if I wanted to hang out with them, I had to go meet them at a bar or something like that. And that's how I felt. But, you know, and that was kind of an unexpected problem for me. Or like the holidays would come around and they wouldn't invite me to a Christmas party, you know, the Christmas party we had every year, or they'd be really worried about it. And, you know, I just stopped getting invited to stuff. I felt like I was starting to be excluded from all the stuff that I used to be so involved in. And that was hard. But in reality, I didn't lose any of those friends. You know, I stopped hanging out with most of them just because I always met them in a drinking situation. But they were always there, and I could always call them. And it's not like they started hating me or anything like that. And then on top of that, when I started hanging out with other sober alcoholics, I gained a ton of friends. And my social circle got wider. You know, when I was in the depths of my drinking, I had those friends. I didn't go hang out with them, those drinking friends even. I was just stuck in my house because I didn't want to drive. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit with the bottle. So, you know, I think that it felt like a problem, but it really wasn't a problem. So, yeah, that was kind of a big one for me, and it took a little while to get over that one. Mm-hmm. But one more, the 5th bonus one, and Marcus totally relates to this one, is the anxiety levels. For me, my anxiety levels kind of mellowed out when I got sober. I did have anxiety as far as, you know, in relation to those problems that I just talked about. I have to take responsibility for my life. I don't know what to do. I'm bored. I don't know how to stay sober. I had some anxiety about that, but they weren't too bad. For Marcus, you have a little bit of a different story on that one, right?
Yeah, my anxiety, I thought it was going to go away when I got sober, and it didn't go away for like 3 years, maybe even more. I think it really, really went away. Surprisingly, I want to say kind of around the time I was dealing with my dad's stuff, and when I quit smoking, which was interesting. I was like, okay, yeah, that's weird. Like, cigars might have been like the last straw for anxiety. But also dealing with my dad's stuff, when he was passing away, or getting to that point, it made me rethink a lot of things. Like, I'm self-absorbed for what? Like, does it really matter? Like, here I am worried about my shirt being ripped and he's dying. Does my shirt really matter? It kind of put things in perspective. And anxiety in the beginning was very difficult. It was nonstop. Going to meetings helped because it forced me to go be around other people and forced me to get out. Because the more I stayed at home and didn't interact with other people, the more my anxiety was difficult when I did go out. And so it was kind of like a level. So like now, if I go to a meeting once a year, I'm a little bit anxious, like a 2.
Sure.
If I go every week, I'm a 0.
Right.
And that's something called exposure therapy, where you expose yourself mentally to the stimulus, just to be clear. Right?
Yeah.
Other types of things. It's like, hey, on this YouTube channel, they said. But, getting around that stimulus and understanding, hey, I'm going to be okay. Hey, I'm going to be okay. Hey, I'm going to be okay. Makes things okay.
Right. So Neil had just asked if I could list the 4 issues. And there are 4 unexpected problems, Neil, but yeah, I'll list them real quick. 1 was sleep. 2 was I felt like I lost all my friends. I'm kind of going out of order here. But friends, relationships, I felt like a lot of them stopped. 3 was I had to learn how to live life. That's kind of a big one. And the 4th one is I had to take responsibility for my sobriety and my actions in life. Those are them. And then the 5th bonus one was anxiety. For some people, the anxiety gets pretty high. And for me, it did at times. It just wasn't a consistent level like when I was drinking. I had that consistent level of how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to quit drinking? I'm afraid of the detox and all this and that. I don't want to admit to everybody I'm an alcoholic because I know I'll have to stop drinking. That was pretty high anxiety at that level.
Yeah. Dave's got an interesting question. A little early. He says he's got a Christmas party coming up, which, that's like 4 months away or 3 months away. And let's see. It will be my first one sober in 10 years. Everyone will be drinking heavily. What I would say, Dave, is get an exit plan.
Yep.
And kind of know, like, okay, hour and a half, 2 hours in, everyone will be, like, they're not going to remember when you left if that's the case. So maybe find a meeting or a different party to go to 2 hours after that one starts so that you have an excuse to leave before everything gets crazy. And having a meeting to go to after that, like, if I'm like, okay, I got an AA meeting at 9:30 and the party starts at 7, that's pretty good. I'm out at 9, I have a reason, and I know I'm going to go to a meeting, so I'm kind of accountable for, like, unless I want to go there hammered, I'm probably going to be okay. And I think preparation is key for stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dave, for me, sounds like this is a Christmas party you've gone to before. So you kind of know what's going to happen during that party. And you know how you've reacted to it before when you were drinking. But at least you know kind of the schedule of stuff, because that's a valuable tool to know, is just kind of what's going to happen when. A couple things that I do for parties, and this goes not just for Christmas parties, for any party. There are probably some people here going to a Labor Day party, right? But have your, like Marcus said, your own exit plan. So your own vehicle, maybe, and make sure you're going where you're able to leave, because you may be going with somebody else that wants to stay, and they really, really, really want to stay. But make it clear to them that when you're going to leave, you're going to leave. So that's part of your exit plan. But for me, I show up on time. It's be fashionably late. No, I show up on time and start, and meet the hosts and meet people and do whatever that's going on in the party other than drinking. But enjoy the party. And then, you're probably going to eat at some point. So you're going to have to stick around for that. There's probably going to be a Christmas party dessert, present opening. So like maybe right after the present opening is when you need to plan on leaving. And that's something that I usually have done. The Christmas parties I've gone to sober, there's a point where you can tell, and right after the presents are open, then things usually, people start getting loud, dancing on tables, maybe not that, but, they start getting louder and louder, and you can tell. And then it's time to go to the hosts and say thank you so much for the party, or the people that are important to say goodbye to, and say goodbye to them. Don't go around the whole party and say goodbye to everybody. You don't need to do that. You just say goodbye to the important people and take off. And that's what I do. The other very important thing I do for those things, I bring my own drink that's non-alcoholic that I enjoy. I usually bring extra, because when somebody sees me break out the really delicious mineral water or whatever that I bring, they're going to want some too, because most of the other people at the party, they may be drinking, but they're not drinking alcoholically because they're not alcoholics. So they would love a bottle of mineral water. They don't have to have 10 martinis like I did. They're good. So you bring extra things like that. There's all sorts of little things you can do, but the most important thing that Marcus said was have a plan going in. Yeah. You can have somebody that's sober, that's on your phone, that knows you're going to call them in the middle of it. So you can just say, hey, I'm doing good. It's all right. It's good. We're having a good time. Okay, cool, man. That sort of.
One thing I'll also say is, if you are worried, bow out. Don't go. Yeah. They're not going to care unless you're like the boss. Then they might be like, hey, where's the guy who runs this ship? But most of the time they're not going to care. So knowing when to bow out is key to staying sober. Lilith says, I've been sober 33 days after my relapses and detoxing many times. I'm struggling as I have other issues to deal with, which is stressing me out. Well, the main issue is sobriety.
Yeah.
Not drinking. Like, if you drink, then you're not going to deal with the other issues. They're going to get worse, and next time you get sober, you're going to have far worse of a problem, and you're going to be deeper in drinking, and it's just going to be a mess. I had a lot of things to deal with when I was 33 days sober, and some of them I was like, okay, well, that can wait. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything in piles of importance, not alcoholic insanity, I'm a nutcase importance, like what is actually important and what can wait. Like, okay, yeah, I have a doctor appointment about something serious, I might want to go to that. Or I got this to deal with, I might want to deal with that. But some things can wait. Some things, it's like, okay, I'm going to put these in responsibility list, and then also take it in stride. Right? Like, yeah, okay, if you have a meeting with a judge or you're going to go to jail, yeah, you might want to go to that. Just saying, that's probably high on the important list. But if it's like, oh, creditors are calling, okay, yeah, they'll be calling in 45 days too. They ain't going to go away. Or they might, who knows. But put things in level of what is important and look at it as, okay, well, you live this way in a drunken, crazy life for the last couple years or however long it was. So you don't need to solve all the problems right here, right now, today. Boom. Chill. Focus on sobriety. Take the big stuff as it comes. The little things, don't sweat it. Probably be okay, and rest. And remember that some days, I actually dealt with that this week, some days you just feel like crap, and it's a win not to drink. Some days that is the win. Like, hey, I didn't drink today. Everything else went to shit, but I didn't drink. I got my trophy. I didn't drink today. That was my win. And some days that's important. And stress is about anticipating what you think might happen. It's all it's about. You are stressing about 90% of things that will probably never happen. Instead, be objective. I learned this from Stoic philosophy. There's lots of good books and tapes out there. We talk about it in our course at talksober.com about relaxing and take the things I can control, things I can't control. What's the point of worrying about them? Can't control it. Like, people freak out, worry, and get in fights over politics. And it's like, I mean, my vote literally is about as valuable as a losing lottery ticket. Right? It's like, okay, what did they really do? I mean, it's important to vote, sure, but at the end of the day, you know, I don't think any president has ever won by one vote. So, you know, we got to look at that. We got to understand it. But people are fighting in the streets about politics. And it's like, you can't do a damn thing about it until you put on your, I'm going to go and be, you know, governor or senator or president or whatever. Can't do anything. Unless you become a lobbyist. I think they are actually more important than the people in power. And so, you know, and you get like $2 million a year. So if you want to do that, then you could worry and be a lobbyist and be like, yay, I think it's okay to pollute things because, you know, Walmart and jobs. I mean, that's it. Like if you say the word jobs, you could basically, you could go to Tree Huggers of America political group, and as long as you're like, hey, jobs, they'll be like, cut all the trees. We don't even need any trees. Jobs. That's it. But anyway, I digress. But that goes to show how much we worry about things we can't control.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, what a lot of people have, and I'm not sure if this is your case, Lilith, but a lot of times those other issues are like with family. And maybe with a lot of people, what I hear a lot is, you know, a family member or a partner or a good friend that's also having trouble with alcohol or drugs or something like that. And it's a difficult thing to deal with. But Marcus just touched on it, which was what do you have control over? What you have control over is your own sobriety, so that needs to be your priority. And then your next priority needs to be those issues that you can do something about. The legal issues, the money issues, you know, things like that. If you are able to take care of those, then you take care of those. But the other people, you don't have control over them. You can make suggestions, but trying to drive your opinions into what they need to do. But, you know, once again, I don't know if that's what you're talking about other issues, but I know that's the case with a lot of people. Is they feel they have responsibility to deal with the other people. So do what you can do. That's it. And that's going to take a lot of that stress off of you. If you just take care of what you need to take care of. Keep your side of the street clean. And then, you know, it's going to help you a lot.
Absolutely. All right, guys. TalkSober.com if you want to support what we're doing and get all kinds of tools and audios and MP3s and PDFs to help you get and stay sober. Right now, we are still running at a negative, so your help is greatly appreciated. Go over to TalkSober.com and, get rocking and rolling over there so that we can put on more shows and get it going. I think we might be...
Go click on TalkSober.com and check out our website. I think it's pretty cool. And if you join our program, our program is designed to help you shift that mindset. And that's what my problem was when I was drinking, is I had this self-centered alcoholic mindset. And I had to shift it to more of a sober mindset. And there's some things you can do if you do our program. You do it a few times, and really do it slowly. Take your time, think about it. And it's going to help you change that mindset and start to get you thinking on the right track. That's what this alcoholism and the addiction, it is a physical addiction, but it's also a mental addiction. And we can get over, with the doctor's help, get over that physical aspect of it, but we're stuck with that mental aspect of it. And that's what it becomes the most difficult thing to learn, is how to shift that mind to the other direction. So go check it out, and you can just check out the site for free, and there's a couple things to look at there, and go look.
All right, awesome, guys. I think that's about it for now. Check out the stuff, subscribe, smash the bell or like button or whatever it is, the thing. Smash that thing. There you go. And go to TalkSober.com, click the big yellow button, sign up, and we'll see you in the group. Have a good one, guys.